And we'll start here with end of year one. End of year one has 3 key data collections with career technical education, or CTE, course completion, and work-based learning. The data is collected to satisfy the requirements of Carl Perkins legislation and the Every Student Succeeds Act in the form of College and Career Indicator, or CCI, measures on the California School Dashboard. The files that are used to submit this data are contained in the orange box on the slide here. First, the student enrollment, or SENR, file. This is used to establish student ownership at an LEA, but in terms of end of year one, the student enrollment file is needed to correspond with the student course section completion, student career technical education, and work-based learning records. Next, we have the staff demographics, or SDEM, record that's submitted in end of year one. And this is used to ensure that SEIDs, or seeds, that are associated to course section completion records have the relevant staff data in CALPADS. We then have the course section completion records themselves, the CRSC records, and these are needed for every official grading period except for summer school, and college courses are included in the course section submission in end of year one. We next have the student course section completion records. These are used to report student course completion and academic results, as well as CTE participation. We then have the student career technical education, or SCTE, file, which is used to report CTE completers, but must align with pathways and capstone courses that are reported in the student course section records here. And then finally, we have the work-based learning, or WBLR, file, which is used to report different work-based learning that students engage in at your school sites. It's essential for an early start and a successful certification of the end-of-year data collections that you identify and establish relationships with the staff involved in the data collection as early as possible. And in end-of-year one, this includes your school site staff, registrars, program staff, CTE staff, site administrators, and student system support staff. So one very good idea while we're not yet in end of year, while we're in this kind of gap period between fall 2 and the end of year submissions, would be to reach out to these folks and kind of get the communications infrastructure that you need established in order for the reports review process to go as kind of seamlessly as possible for you there. All right, so this slide contains the end of year one pre-snapshot submission activities. So this is the pre-May 6th submission activity. These are the things that you can be doing in end of year one now before the data collections actually begin. And some of the file submissions should already be underway. We did survey some LEAs in fall 2, and those that had certified well in advance of the deadline had almost always started early prior to the opening of the window with their record submission. So here we have a table listing the submission activity that will help you to complete end of year one prior to the deadline. This table may help you to recognize which data sets are complete and can be submitted now, which data sets should be submitted now, even if they are not complete, and data sets that may in fact be better off submitting later. So understanding the processing method and the operational keys that are contained in this table will allow you to submit targeted data sets to submit complete data now, target data sets that may be incomplete and you can update as the end of year submissions go on, and then data sets that may in fact be better off for you to hold off until they are complete at your school sites and district. And when you do submit this work early and prepare for the end of year data submissions, you will have more time during the end of year submission windows in order to review your data, clear your errors, and ensure accuracy in your reports. And this extra time for data quality is quite advantageous for LEAs, particularly with the quality criteria for differentiated assistance on the horizon. More end of year one activities here. The course section completion submission that you undertake in end of year one is used to inform, again, the college and career indicator on the California School Dashboard. And college credit courses inform the college and career indicator. College credit courses are either reported with a specific college course code in the 9,000 range, or they're reported with a non-standard instructional level that is either 23 to indicate college credit only, or 24 to indicate dual credit. CTE courses also inform the college and career indicator, and CTE courses should be reported with the state course code in the 7,000 to 8,999 range. If your CTE courses also offer college credit, they must have the non-standard instructional level code populated again with either 23 or 24 to indicate college credit or dual credit. The capstone course that's required to report your CTE completers comes from your course section completion data and your leadership and military science course submission, which also informs the college and career indicator, comes from the course completion submission as well. And this is one instance where records that are submitted in CALPADS inform specific indicators on the California School dashboard. This slide is meant to prompt your thinking about submitting courses that have already been completed at your LEA prior to May 6th. So in end of year, we report on the entire academic year, meaning that there are courses that concluded in prior semesters or in prior quarters that can be reported now. We do understand that data reported in CalPads doesn't always reflect on a one-to-one basis on your accountability reports. So a great tool to estimate your college and career indicator counts. College and career indicator is the metric on the dashboard that is influenced by end of year one. And a great tool to estimate your college and career indicator counts and to get an understanding of the dashboard calculations is the Connecting CalPads to the California School Dashboard Handbook. The handbook identifies CalPads reports that relate to specific dashboard indicators. And you can see on the slide that the handbook identifies report 3.10 and report 3.11 as sources for your college credit courses. Report 3.10 identifies the state course code and the non-standard instructional level code. These fields identify college level content and identify college credit. And the corresponding student detail report is report 3.11, which identifies the student, the marking period of completion, and the final grade for the course. All right, there is a common pain point that is typically experienced in end of year one by LEAs across the state, and that is a newly transitioned data discrepancy. So the SCTE 689E1, formerly the CERT 123, is often the most troublesome error that you'll experience in end of year one. The SCTE 698 is the missing or invalid SCSC record for a CTE completer error. In the CalPads file specifications or CFS document, the CalPads code sets, and possibly most important is the valid code combinations document, will help you to resolve any of your SCTE 698 errors. The valid code combinations document is particularly helpful because your SCTE 698 errors are often the result of capstone course completer pathway misalignment. And the valid code combinations document is really where you should turn to get the course alignment to get the fields in your course section records aligned. It does take the submission of 4 out of the 5 file types in end of year one for CalPads to identify an SCTE 698. And this is one reason why it's the most troublesome error in end of year one. Resolution of the SCTE 698 may have cascading effects and require the resubmission of multiple files. And the cascading effects that a single error can have is one of the reasons we recommend that you begin submitting your data early. So that is the common pain point that LEAs experience in end of year one. In end of year one, LEAs are also required to track student work-based learning participation, and you do that in CalPads with the work-based learning or WBLR record. Federal legislation references work-based learning in the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act, which is part of Perkins 5. It's also referenced in the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 and the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act of 2014. And these federal policies are implemented at the LEA level in 4 ways. So the federal policies are implemented at the LEA level by categorizing your work-based learning experiences. LEA should categorize the type of work-based learning, whether an internship, job shadowing, student-led enterprise, or one of the other work-based learning type codes in CalPads. And LEAs should be categorizing all of the work-based learning experiences in which students engage to account for your work-based learning participation. LEAs implement federal policies around work-based learning by identifying opportunities and by identifying employers. Schools and school sites will also track and associate career pathways, employers, and companies who provide work-based learning opportunities. So it's very, I guess, pertinent on you to work with your school sites in identifying your opportunities and employers. The third way in which LEAs implement federal policies around work-based learning is by documenting dates, hours, and performance. So with regards to dates and hours, LEAs should document the dates and hours that students participate in work-based learning activities. And this is not just limited to the dates and hours that students are working in internships. These are the dates and hours for any work-based learning activities that students may be engaged in. And then with regards to documenting performance, this is typically provided by the employers. So the employer should provide evaluations and should provide feedback to the student that is given to the LEA and reported in CALPADS. And then finally, LEAs are comply with federal legislation around work-based learning by preserving longitudinal records, and that is done in CalPADS itself. So districts capture individual student level information about work-based learning participation over time, and when that data is submitted in CalPADS, it is tracked longitudinally to build a profile of student experiences as they evolve through high school. So that's a bit more on the work-based learning submission that's contained in end of year one. And there has been some confusion between work-based learning and work experience. So this slide is kind of meant to help you to make that distinction locally. So let's spend some time talking about the nature of work-based learning and how it differs from work experience. So work-based learning activities extend the classroom into the workplace. They connect acquired knowledge and skills to a student's future employment. Work-based learning provides students with structured learning experiences that include internships, apprenticeships, job shadowing, and so on in order to build career awareness, facilitate exploration, and prepare students for future careers. While both work-based learning and work experience involve real-world workplace engagement, work-based learning is a structured educational approach that integrates learning with work activities, while work experience is a broader term encompassing any paid or unpaid work, which includes internships and community service. For the purposes of CalPADS reporting, if you have high school students that are employed in part-time jobs or anything like that, that would count as work experience, but would not count as work-based learning. Work-based learning must occur in partnership with the LEA or with the school site. So just a slide to help you distinguish between work-based learning and work experience. And that does conclude the final file type that we'll discuss in end of year one. But let's now turn to discussing our end of year one reports. And for end of year one, there are 5 aggregate reports. There are also multiple supporting reports, which provide specific counts and detailed lists of students that are counted in your aggregate reports. So one of the benefits of submitting your data early is that you'll have report data available when the snapshot begins on May 6th. And disseminating your reports with key data to the relevant stakeholders at your LEA may elicit buy-in for the remainder of EOY, even beyond end of year one. And so it is important to get an early start to your record submission in CalPADS for end of year this academic year, but really every academic year. And the legend and the arrows on this screen show how the nature of each report as well as how reports link to other reports. So according to the legend here, the reports that are in kind of green or teal are your aggregate reports, and these reports must be reviewed and approved in order for your LEA to approve the end of year one submission, and so they must be reviewed and approved in order for you to certify. The reports in orange are your supporting reports. These provide detailed student information for the students that are counted in your aggregate reports. So if you see anything that's amiss in one of your aggregate reports, you can use the supporting reports to kind of drill down and find the bad data so that you can make corrections. And then these supporting reports are also there to help you to reconcile CalPADS with your local student information systems. And the arrows show us which reports support which aggregate reports. So according to the arrows here, report 3.10 course sections completed, count and details for departmentalized courses is a supporting report and supports report 3.9. Course section completed, count by content area for departmentalized courses, and so on. Report 3.15 is a supporting report, which provides detailed information for the aggregate report 3.14, and so on for the remainder of the slide here. We do recommend that you review your end of year one report mapping guides in the CalPADS user manual. And if you did download this slide deck, we've linked to your end of year one report mapping guides in the notes section of the slide deck. This resource does help with the data elements that are used in the counts for your aggregate reports and assists your data stewards and your subject matter experts across your LEAs with the reports review and verification process by identifying the sources to turn to for verification. All right, report 3.19, your CTE completer count report, is the most high profile data set in end of year one. The counts on report 3.19 are required for Perkins funding and include measures for the college and career indicator on the California School dashboard. For most LEAs, the completer count can be estimated up until the final grading period of the academic year if the relevant files are submitted now. And more importantly, identifying misalignment between completer pathways and capstone courses can be identified after the files are submitted in which you report completers. So report 3.19 is a very high profile report, and you are able to ensure accuracy much earlier on if you do submit your data for end of year one early, if you begin submitting that data prior to May 6th. All right. We do understand that most, if not all of you, have responsibilities outside of CalPADS. So in addition to this primer, we do have a myriad of training that is available to you now. The CalPADS user manual and CSIS YouTube training channel are accessible to everyone. Links to the relevant training material have been included on this slide if you did download the slide deck. And if you're new or just need a refresher prior to the end of your submission, I encourage you to take advantage of the resources that are available for you here. For those like you in the room here who have the Bridge LMS, live end of year trainings via webinar begin with this primer training today, and we'll continue our end of year trainings throughout April and May this academic year. And that does conclude our discussion of the end of year one submission. Kyron, Marshall, how are we looking? Do we have any questions that we think we should address kind of verbally for the room here?
There were some questions about DDs in Fall 2. If you guys already certified Fall 2 and you see data discrepancies, that's just your ODS running in real time. So the DD is still running in real time. So if you feel that you need to correct it, then go ahead and do so. But for clear data, and then but just make sure not to submit your entire file. Just correct the DDs manually in CalPads. Number two is the difference between fall 2 and end of year one. I think you may have touched on it, Matt, about although we're working on the same file types, fall 2 is was focused on who are the teachers credentialed to teach the classes in Fall 2. So that's basically we're collecting the data for CalSAS purposes. And so that's for Fall 2. End of year 1 is a whole different submission. You can submit a whole, you can assign a whole different staff member to a course and not mind what you submitted in fall 2. So that's just a clarification. So for end of year 1 is only for students who completed departmentalized courses. So unfortunately there are schools that are have 7 to 8 graders, and so the expectation is even if you do not have any departmentalized courses in those grades, you may still need to certify end of year one because of the presence of your 7 and 8 graders. That's just to clear any confusion in the chat. So, yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Kyron.
You have completed this module. Please continue to the next video. Thank you.